Yo.
Yo.
This is Luca from Pudgy Penguin. Stand up for a sec. Stand up. Watch how intimidating this is. And he has a penguin PFP. Imagine the shock backstage.
Look, I'm intimidating in my height, but I got to keep you away from my girlfriend. I didn't know you were so good looking in person.
Look, guys, one thing I told the panel behind the scenes backstage, I said I'm going to ask the tough questions, the questions that, and I'll avoid the boring questions that everyone asks. And I'm going to start with Luca himself. We've been on stage together.
Yeah.
You were a lot nicer on Spaces than you were in person. But I asked you something behind the scenes, and we kind of went back and forth. Is very directly, man, NFTs, is it over?
Of course not.
I'm talking about NFT PFPs.
Never. I think if you study 2017 coins and 2021 to 2024 NFTs, the similarities between 2017 coins and 2020 coins and 2021 NFTs and 2024 NFTs are almost identical. In 2017, you had a series of 20 coins that everyone thought were the future of crypto. They washed out, 6 or 7 remained. Same thing happened with NFTs. You had 20 that you thought were the pinnacle of NFTs. 6 or 7 remained. In 2020, the unlock of leverage came into play and basically ran DeFi summer. And we basically had a monster leveraged run-up and FOMO-driven run-up in 2020 that ultimately led to the next bull market. What's happened in 2023 and 2024 is the unlock of leverage of NFTs. And so the second they start gaining some momentum again, I think they're going to run greater than they've ever ran before. And I'm really excited to kind of see what that looks like. But if you understand traditional finance or just finance in general, the world runs on leverage. NFTs have never seen leverage before. And I think the moves are going to be really violent. And I think you're going to see PFPs bigger than they've ever been once they catch the narrative again.
All right, so I want to get more convinced. And we've got the heavyweights of the NFT ecosystem, or at least the PFP NFTs on stage with us. Tiffany, one thing I was shocked by, and I told you that backstage, Magic Eden somehow is #1. And if my numbers are correct in terms of volume, 5 times bigger than OpenSea. Is that right? This is mental. First, how? But second, kind of linking to what Luca's saying, can you give us some numbers on why PFP NFTs are not dead?
Yeah, I can think of 700 million reasons, aka our volume in the last 30 days, as to why NFTs are not
What's
dead.
the volume?
700 million in volume over the last 30 days. But it's not actually just about the numbers. I guess, can I actually get a raise of hands? Who here is familiar with Magic Eden, has used Magic Eden before? Oh, man, that's so gratifying to see, because I remember the first time I went to ETH Denver in 2022, I had to repeatedly tell people about Magic Eden, and nobody had heard of Magic Eden. So I'll be quick, and then we can talk more about Magic Eden's strategy in a bit. But we are the #1 NFT marketplace today. Kind of what makes us different is the fact that, one, we are multi-chain, meaning we are on 4 blockchains today. We're proudly the #1 marketplaces on both Ordinals as well as Solana, and we are on Ethereum and Polygon as well. On top of that, we also have an ecosystem that we are building. So we have a wallet product called Magic Eden Wallet. And through this kind of experience of having a multi-chain marketplace, as well as an end-to-end service from a product point of view, we offer both the breadth of community as well as the depth of the product. And so, I mean, there's a lot of war stories as to how we got here. But it was through a lot of taking a lot of bets with imperfect information that we took the leap to Ordinals, that we built a wallet, and we're proud to live another day.
Tiffany, just before going to Michael, you talked about the various chains that you have on Magic Eden. I think backstage you told me that there's another chain. Can I mention it?
Yeah, absolutely. So around the end of this month, we're also going to be adding Base. So excited.
So my question though is, can you tell us more about NFTs on those? Again, focusing on PFPs. Did you just yawn, man?
No.
I saw you yawn. I saw you yawn.
You just said base NFT.
Someone tweet this out. Luca from Pudgy Penguins yawned at Magic Eden, just saying.
What? Never at Magic Eden. I yawned at base NFTs.
Nice one, bro. But can you tell us more about NFTs on the various chains? We're trying to give us some numbers as well. You've got Ordinals gaining a lot of traction. I've been talking about the Bitcoin ecosystem for the last couple of days. Solana, everyone knows what Solana achieved in the last few months. ETH, is it still king? And then Base, is it gaining traction?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit, and then I think you have some thoughts about Base. I'll let you take the lead on there. But yeah, obviously Ordinals are on a huge tear right now, and I would think about what did the different NFTs across the different chains represent? So ordinals to me is like, a lot was cut out. Like, when there were NFTs that were on like Ethereum and Solana, there was a big period when people were like, oh, we gotta like have utility. You know, why should I hold this NFT? What kind of other value can it drive towards me? And then ordinals is like, takes that thesis and punches it in the face, and it is like, NFTs should just be simple, and they should be a provenance play. And so to us, like, Bitcoin is the most obvious way that NFTs are truly just like, they're just art on the blockchain. And turns out people really like that, and people are really bullish on Bitcoin. I'd say like on Solana, what you've seen is like Solana has a very developer-centric culture. And so as a result of that, a lot of the top NFTs on Solana are actually like parts of like businesses, whether it's like Pike Finance, like Mad Lads, you know, a lot of these collections you can actually trace back to businesses. And then I think like, you know, on Ethereum, obviously Ethereum is like the first chain that ever had NFTs. So there's already a lot of like native kind of NFT culture that lives on that chain. And I think different chains will represent like different value propositions and different types of cultures for NFTs. I don't know if you want to talk about.
I'm going to link it to the same question there, Michael. By the way, I'm taking notes for questions. I'm not texting anyone. And my questions are very selfish here, because we invest very heavily in projects and have for years. We haven't been that active in the NFT ecosystem, and I want to find out if we're making a mistake or not. So my questions are kind of based on that. Any investors would appreciate this. Tiffany, you talked about ordinals being a provenance play, Solana being more of a utility play, ETH more kind of being utility, provenance, or a mix of both.
I don't know. I think it's also too soon to say like one chain is one exact thing, because there's also like art on Solana. But I think Bitcoin ordinals, people do recognize that. That's like the provenance play. Solana, Ethereum, and other NFTs, I think they're still kind of feeling it out. And it really comes from like who is building on that chain right now. And on Solana, you're seeing like a lot of great businesses. Like DeFi is starting to boom back on Solana again after an amazing run for Sol in the last year. ETH, I think we're going to see. I don't know. Maybe you guys have some answers.
So Michael, you got to talk about ETH, and more importantly, Base wasn't even mentioned, but it's been gaining more and more, being part of the narrative in recent weeks.
Yeah, I think when you look at
you got to get your mic a tiny bit up. I can't hear you too well. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Perfect. Much better. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, when you look at Base, actually it's a version of Optimism, which is a different layer 2. And it's connected to Coinbase. So there's a really natural way to on-ramp a lot of people into a layer 2. And the latest updates on Ethereum allow for something called blobs. And it actually makes it so that doing a transaction on Base is like less than a penny. So it's actually cheaper than doing it on Solana. So I think there's like technical advantages to building something on Base. But one of the interesting things also, if you're a creator, is the incentives that you can get just for experimenting. Like, there's a lot of people who want to build something, publish an NFT, and just like dabble in it, especially artists. And there's a lot of incentives that people might not know about. So Optimism actually gave out 10 million Optimism, which is around $30 to $40 million, to 23,000 different wallets. And all you had to do was mint a base NFT, like create a base NFT. And that averages out to about $2,000. So like, think if you're an artist and you want to get into the crypto space, but you don't really know, and you're maybe going to sell one or two things, you can dabble, and there's a protocol level incentive for you to get like $2,000 on top of just trying to learn.
So it's like Base is getting more creative.
Yeah.
With their use cases.
Yeah.
Okay, and then where is the ETH right now? I'm kind of more of a punk guy. We don't have too big of a bag of NFTs.
I think it's really funny to hear all of this, like, where is ETH stuff? Because it's like 95% of all TVL is on ETH. It like can't be ignored. I think right now a lot of attention is going to ordinals for sure, but like in the cyclical nature of everything, I think that we're going to see a really big swing back to ETH NFTs.
How are the numbers, Michael? And just for the audience, like, just make sure you look at the panel. I don't know if you can see it here. You can't see the names. Oh, there they are. You got some of the biggest names in the ecosystem kind of giving you alpha. And Michael, talking about ETH, can you give me some numbers? Volume on ETH versus, and maybe Tiffany can help on that. Do you guys know the numbers on ETH versus Solana versus?
Right now, the Bitcoin vault, like, we're right around halving. Like, we're getting like a really big moment in Bitcoin history. Like, we're in a really big moment for Bitcoin history. And so a lot of energy is around that. It's around the can you hear me?
Yeah, because someone fixed his mic, so it keeps falling down. We can't hear it, Michael.
Off.
You know, we're talking about Yuga here, guys. We gotta make sure we know what Yuga's saying. And maybe, okay, your mic is working. Go ahead, finish off.
Yeah, so I think it's opportunity cost about where the narrative is right now. Like the way that you see Bitcoin and the halvening and the runes meta coming out, like all of that stuff means people want to do activity over there. But we're going to see how that shakes out. I think there's going to be a lot of people who make a lot of money on runes, on the Bitcoin halvening in general. But then usually when that happens, there's a rotation.
Yeah. And last question for you before going back to Luca. And I'll just ask the question that no one asked, but everyone wants to know the answer to. That's a question for you, Michael, not for Yuga.
Yeah.
For people wanting to invest in the ecosystem, not investment advice, where should they invest?
I think you should collect what you love. I mean, you should really get it because you believe in the underlying ecosystem behind it. So,
Michael, don't ever say collect what you love. For people that don't love NFTs, but they love money, what do you think are the ecosystems that are undervalued right now? Not investment advice.
I mean, I think you've seen an outpouring into Bored Ape Yacht Club this week. One of the things that we did was we actually have a lot of different IPs at Yuga right now. And just a couple of days ago, we spun out 2 of them to another gaming company because I think it's really important to know what you're good at and what you're not good at. And we were able to spin it out in a way that makes everybody in that ecosystem a winner and like rewards holders from day one. And as a result, a lot of people saw Yuga bringing focus back to what got BAYC to BAYC and what got Yuga to Yuga. And so you're seeing a lot more confidence come into our ecosystem. And I think you're going to see a lot more energy come back into ETH NFTs in general.
By the way, I'm going to ask you that question again, and I'm going to ask it to Luca and Tiffany. You're not allowed to talk about pudgy penguins or Yuga when I ask that question later on. One last quick question, I'll go back to Luca, is a very, very brief question, is punks. Just can you promise me there's not going to be utility for punks anytime soon?
No, we're very careful with punks.
Thank you. Please,
that's it.
Please, beautiful. You remain careful. Luca, first I want to give you credit. Like, in the midst of the bear market, when everyone was shitting on NFTs, and on, I think it was on the Crypto Town Hall, you were, I think, the first person from the NFT ecosystem that we brought up on stage. I do remember Scott, yeah? We had that back and forth. So Scott Melker is in the audience for anyone watching the recording. And Scott would kill me whenever I bring anyone with a PFP on stage. Like, genuinely, we'd be arguing behind the scenes. But you were one of the people that kind of triggered his change in sentiment and his logic kicking in. What's the strategy with Pudgy Penguins? You guys have done really well in the utility you created. You kind of led the way. I remember in the early days when we were kind of going through the whole Walmart announcement. Has your strategy shifted in this bull market, and how that relates to the audience for anyone looking at the NFT ecosystem when it's not getting enough love or as much love as it deserves? You kind of get an idea of what to look for. Like, how are the developers, the people leading the industry, how are they looking at kind of evolving with the market?
Yeah, I think you have to play within the arena in which you're kind of thrown into. And so in the bear market, there's a bear market arena, and there's a bear market strategy and playbook that I think is like very predicated on like giving and, you know, spearheading a revolution. In this case, like, I think we did a great job leading the charge on what it meant to actually create a brand in the space and, you know, bring people, you know, get people excited about NFTs, create mass adoption. And so I think we were really good at that in the bear. I think in the bull market, what I've realized is you have to be bold. And I think it's time for us to take some big swings at bat and try to hit some home runs.
Examples?
Well, you'll find out in May.
Give us something small now?
No, you'll find out in May. But I think you're going to see us really start taking some big swings to the fences at some point in May. And regardless, though, I think the principle of NFTs remains the same. These identities are Veblen goods. I was talking to somebody who was more traditional. They're like, why does the NFTs make sense? And I kind of explained to them like this. A friend of mine, or a colleague of mine, his name is Logan Paul, he bought a $3.5 million Pokemon card, and he put it on a chain. And I was like, why would he do that? And then I thought about it. I was like, well, you know, if I spend $3.5 million on something, I want to wear it. I want to be able to like almost flex it and show people that this is what I'm wearing. And I thought about it. I was like, well, in a digital world, in a world where we spend more and more time on our phone and more time interacting on social, this idea that I have this Veblen good as a PFP is actually something that I think is not to be underestimated. You know, what people really optimize for, especially on the internet, is status, right? I want people to know that I'm a part of this group. I want to be a part of this community. And so for us, community and culture is at the foundation of everything. Like, we've spent many, many years at Pudgy Penguins, you know, making sure that all the right people have this identity and are a part of this group, so that when you wear a Pudgy Penguin PFP, you know, you are aligning yourself with some of the biggest VCs, the best builders, some of the most affluent, you know, people within the space, so that there's this type of camaraderie and this type of status, you know, on the social network.
That made sense in the last bull market. I'll just be direct. Someone having a punk NFT, does it still have the same status it did before?
Of course. I mean, maybe not today.
What's the floor? Oh, not today.
Right, but it's not necessarily predicated on floor. It's predicated on being a thought leader and being ahead of the curve. I think
I think it does today still. Like, being a CryptoPunk owner is a status symbol, and
it still is.
Will always be. Yes,
totally.
Absolutely.
Oh shit! All right, 123K. That's the floor.
But I think it's more than that, right? It's like I know projects that I think yield status that are not, you know, $10,000 on the floor, and so
I think it's not status, more identity. Well, status, semantics. I get what you mean. So you still have, because I remember that was in the last bull market where people gave a shit about a community, and every NFT represented something. I'm not as deep as you guys to be able to tell you what each leading NFT represents, but maybe I'll let you, Luca, tell us what does CryptoPunks, I won't say you because you're here, what does Pudgy Penguins, maybe another two, what do they represent? The reason I ask this is to kind of understand how our NFTs and the community they create, what type of identities do they have now? If someone has a PFP of a CryptoPunk, what would be the first word that comes to mind?
Veblen good.
Say again?
Veblen good.
Okay.
Right? Like when I think that, I think, or this person is probably more ahead of the curve in technology than most. I think Pudgy Penguins is crypto culture. I think Bored Apes is pop culture. I think Mad Lads is Solana culture.
Bazookies.
Anime culture.
Okay. So the identity aspect still stood the test of time.
And I think it's almost like, where do meme coins fall short? If they fall short on proliferation, the beauty about NFTs is they're almost like self-fulfilling prophecies if you have the right people wearing them.
Okay, yeah, the network effect.
Yeah.
Okay. I had one more good question for you. Interoperability with games. So something I feel like an idiot because I've been talking about it for so long, but it hasn't. And Hugo, you'd be great at talking about this in a bit, Michael. But is that something you've looked into for Pudgy Penguins? And if you have already, and it's already public knowledge, forgive me.
Yeah, I think it's my job to make sure that we can proliferate in as many places as possible. So making things inoperable is obviously key. But I really think that NFTs at its core, it's really just a supply and demand model. The beauty of NFTs and why they're so exciting, at least from like a monetary gain perspective, is the fact that in Pudgy Penguin's case, there's 8,888. In Bored Apes' case, there's only 10,000. From a unit basis, from a token perspective, it's incredibly small. And at any given time, there's how many? 300, 400, 500 listed. There's probably, with any given collection, thousands that, will never list or never hit the market. And I'm just a huge supply and demand maxi. And I think this is where NFTs get really exciting, is if you keep the supply finite and you honor the small token supply and don't segment liquidity and concentrate liquidity, all you have to do is create more demand. So if I am spearheading a partnership by making our PFP inoperable in this game with 20,000 users or 100,000 users, what that's doing is creating more demand and more awareness around the Penguin. Or if I'm making social content or putting toys in Walmart and all the other retailers, ultimately what that's doing is it's creating more awareness around the Penguin, which ultimately over time trickles down to demand across the NFT. And that's not, hey, do I think a kid who's buying a Pudgy Penguin toy at Walmart is going to buy a toy? Do I think that? No. But do I think, a crypto VC who's buying a Pudgy toy for their kid who now has an NFT fund, is then thinking to themselves like, well, this penguin's now sitting in my face. Maybe we should allocate funds here. It's a matter of proliferation, how you can market while also keeping the supply.
Go ahead, look at man. Read the headline here.
Pudgy penguins taking world by storm.
I was looking at news to see what's the latest with pudgy penguins. And I think a lot of focus is on the collectibles in stores across America with plans on television shows and movies. Is that public knowledge? Just briefly, because I want to go to Tiffany.
You just love to get something out of me, huh?
Yeah, but look, I get straight to it. I know the audience is here not to listen to the same shit over and over again.
Yeah, no, we got some big news.
Ah, cool. He's confirmed that Pudgy Penguins has a TV show and a movie coming in soon.
I just didn't say that.
Near you.
I didn't say that.
I said it.
Figgy said that.
Tiffany, I want to go back to, actually, I've got a good question for you here. And something that, first, anything that Luca said that you disagree with?
Disagree.
No, I mean, I think it's great. I think it's
oh, shit.
It's like our honor to host these projects that are going to bat and trying to like create a completely new paradigm of IP, of gaming, of everything. And yeah, it's our job just to provide the rails for you guys to like do your thing.
My job is to squeeze so much alpha from you guys, so you hate me and they like
Try.
And it was working.
He's got all the alpha.
Everyone's coming. All right, so we know you're going to theaters near everybody. Tiffany, the question of you is that it's actually a broad question. It's, again, a selfish question. We're far from what we were in 2021. What do you think is needed? I'm talking from a kind of liquidity perspective and volume perspective. What is needed to trigger that, I'm going to use the word hype, that we had in previous cycles? What are NFTs missing?
Just let me interject really quick. You need to start talking about NFTs on the show again, Mario.
Say again? On my show.
You stopped. You went from
but
all about
Scott
NFTs and crypto.
Kill me. We're good. We'll do it.
But got to set trends. You
but
can't
give me, hold on.
But
give me reasons. You guys are setting the NFT trend. I'm the one that reports on it. So what is missing from the NFT ecosystem other than money?
Okay, I don't want to actually talk about hype and trends. I want to talk about like building like consumer crypto.
You guys are tough.
Because like this phrase, consumer crypto, gets tossed around a lot. And in order for consumer crypto to actually be a thing, and for like these guys to have like a thriving ecosystem, you have to build a platform that kind of puts them in front, right? Like on a lot of these apps, like dApps today, they fall like kind of within a chain. And in that world, you have very siloed ecosystems. But what Magic Eden is trying to do, and what we have done, is like we are the only consumer crypto app when it comes to NFT marketplaces, because we're able to cut through different chains and offer creators a platform where they can really be as limitless as they want to be.
So how? So can you give me examples? Why does that really matter?
It matters because we are all on this stage like trying to figure out how to be successful in an industry that is pre-product market fit on like tech that is pre-product market fit.
And so we're still looking for product market fit for the ecosystem.
Like for NFTs to truly penetrate into crypto retail and even beyond that, like the tech cannot be a hurdle. Like it cannot be a burden. It cannot be like a shortcoming. So the creators can actually do things across multiple chains. They can have multiple services across different chains, which is why like when we launched, right, we were from the very beginning, we had like a Launchpad product. We had a secondary marketplace product. Now we have a wallet product. We have a swaps product. We're launching Runes soon, and we're going to be on like five different chains, including Base.
So I'm going to give you a massive shout out again that we gave early on. Is Magic Eden's #1. I was shocked before coming on stage. 5 times bigger than OpenSea. Love you, OpenSea, but numbers speak for themselves. So that's a shout out to Magic Eden. Going back to the NFT ecosystem as a whole, I want to kind of trigger. Obviously, the numbers speak for themselves. Like more and more people are coming in as we talk about an asset class in crypto that has kind of lagged behind everything else. So my question to you is that the same question I asked earlier. So what is missing beyond the technological limitations? And then for people wanting to enter the ecosystem, what should they look for? Like Luke has given a few examples.
Yeah, but I don't think it's lacking anything. I mean, if you think on principle, what we've done, what Yuga's done, what so many projects have now come and done compared to what they've done in 2021, you just have to understand the cycle that NFTs play in bull markets. NFTs are the place where people put their magic internet money when on the later half, right? Like it's secular. When you look at the opportunity costs, at least in the beginnings of the cycle, everybody picks coins because of the liquidity from the first time around. But I think NFTs are going to catch a serious bid halfway into this to the later half, and I think that's just how the cycle works. It's like, does Bitcoin stop working? Is Bitcoin missing something? You know, when it goes from 69,000 to 16,000? No, not necessarily, right? And I actually think in our case, there's been huge developments. You just have to understand that at the end of the day, NFTs are, you know, they're status symbols. They're Veblen goods. Like I will repeat that until the end of time. And in a crypto native world, like that becomes you yield that status when you've made a ton of money on coins, and then you rotate it, and then it becomes the narrative.
Wait, I just want to say one thing. Like, there was a period last year on Solana when everyone was like, Solana NFTs are dead. I'm sure like a lot of people remember this, right? And like, does anybody actually remember what was the catalyst for Solana NFTs starting to fly again? Happened around like the end of last year. Okay, it was SPL20s, which was basically people taking technology from Bitcoin and trying to put it on Solana. It was like a technological innovation, and it was a new asset class. And that ultimately led to like a huge Solana run, and that lifted like, it was like a tide that like lifts all boats. So I really like, I feel like there are often these really sensational narratives like NFTs are going to die, but I think NFTs are doing just fine, and there will always be like a new meta. And why is that? It's because NFTs are like the only asset class that's like emotional to the user. Like people feel so deeply connected to this thing that's a completely different paradigm from like meme coins, that they will always want to represent it. They will always want to like wear it. They will always want to incorporate it into their life. And that is something that you like cannot find in any other asset class on crypto.
Yeah, Michael, I'm going to ask you another question. Like, you guys at Yuga raise a shit ton of money and kind of leading the charge in innovation in the ecosystem. You've experimented a lot, and my question to you is, what worked and what didn't work? I know it's a tough question. And the reason I'm asking this, kind of related to the audience, is, you know, you've got these guys spending a hell of a lot of money to kind of test things, and then we just got to listen to them and see what works. And at least from my end, this is where I'll be investing.
Well, one of the things that I talked about earlier is we identified some stuff that we weren't good at, and we actually found a better home for it. And it's in a way that is going to grow our networks and allow us to focus on what moves the needle. But when we talk about like NFT innovation, and yeah, we do spend a lot of energy, time, and money trying to figure out the next thing, I think it boils down to the question of like, what does Web3 do better than Web 2? And for us, like what I say internally at Yuga time and time again is that Web3 is really good at solving the cold start problem. And I don't think enough people talk about that, the cold start problem. Good. It's sort of like if you were coming out with an instant messaging app, I would join it if my friends were on it and I could talk to them, but my friends are only going to join it if I'm on it, right? So you're in this chicken and egg thing. How do you solve the cold start problem? And crypto primitives are really good at solving this. Like you see it in DeFi, for instance. You could put your money in the bank and get a yield at the bank, or you could put your money in a DeFi protocol, and as soon as there's some amount of time when they cut you into the protocol, you could actually get a better return than putting it in the bank, right? You could have more say. And so that's really like a way to bootstrap liquidity. But I think the secret here is, and you know, this is one of the things that could spark the next wave of innovation, is when people realize that it's not just restricted to liquidity. You could use crypto primitives to bootstrap almost anything. Like you could use crypto primitives to bootstrap community, to bootstrap charity, to bootstrap entire brands. Like when you look at Instagram, and if you were building it on Web3, you would really be able to check out what are people's contributions to the growth of the protocol, and you could reward them a slice of the protocol. Right now on Instagram, they changed the algorithm. You're dead. Like, you have no say in that. But in a Web3 version, you would actually opt into the governance of that and have control over your future. So I think when you're really looking at where innovation can start, I think it's actually at the very beginning, which is like, you can overcome the cold start problem and solve this like chicken and egg problem of like, how do we get people here?
In-game assets, Like, I've been talking about it for so long. We've invested so heavily in it, and then the team's giving me shit that's underperformed since the last bull market and throughout the bear market.
Sure,
Why?
part of that is around,
for me, this is the most logical use case for NFTs. Like, it just makes so much sense.
It is.
It doesn't mean, I just want to point out one thing. It's not every in-game asset is going to be valuable. It's like similar to not every asset. Like, toilet paper is not worth as much as Luca's watch. So the same thing in-game assets. Certain assets don't need to increase in value. Others are designed to increase in value. So can you tell me more about why, though?
Yeah, I think it's
the entire sector
it's actually a distribution problem. Because the scale that we're talking about, when we're talking about Veblen goods, like, that's only because we have very limited runs of low thousands. But most games in the world that are very successful have monthly active users in the like tens of millions, right? So they could bring the price of these objects down dramatically. And one of the things that we're working on, we had a successful game last year called Doogie Dash. It's an infinite runner, and it's a casual game. But
how's it doing now?
So what we're doing is we're actually releasing it on mobile. And at NFT Paris, we did a closed beta. And just in NFT Paris, it had 100,000 downloads. So we're working out the top of the funnel to make sure it's very clean as people come into it. But if you could take that, you could see a really clear path how Yuga could get into millions of wallets. But that's not really like in-app purchases, that's very Web 2. The really cool thing about it is the creator economy built on top of it. In traditional games, the game company builds a skin. They'll build an entire game just so they could sell you skins, right? And what we're doing is you're going to be able to put your skins on the marketplace, and if people buy it, you get a cut of that skin. But the most important thing to make that feasible is distribution. Without distribution, you're never going to get the scale where people are willing to pay 99 cents for a skin and you're going to get 50% of it, or whatever percentage.
So bullish, would you say in general for this bull market? Very briefly, because I want to go to the last question. The best one is the alpha question. But and you're not allowed to talk about Yuga, no penguins. In-game assets, are you bullish? It's already an alpha question. Are you bullish on in-game assets for this bull market?
Oh, yeah,
It's too early. Okay.
absolutely.
Me too. All right, and last very, very quickly, IP. I wanted to talk more about it, the IP plays you guys have, but we have to keep it brief. We don't have too long. How's that strategy going? Is it working out well? What have you learned?
Oh, it's great. You know, one of the things that Bored Apes are based off of is giving out the IP to let people build their own things, their own businesses, their own events,
And
their
that's
own
working
products. Well? Oh, yeah, it's great. We have over 400 people officially registered out of the 10,000. And we have a waiting list that's in the high hundreds right now. So it's a really interesting thing to see how that could grow the network and grow the protocol and grow visibility even more. It's very common for people to go around New York and to be able to see a shop that's branded with a Bored Ape. It's very common.
All right, so last question. I think this is a question that not enough panels ask, but everyone wants to know, including myself, is we got the leaders of the industry on stage all together. Luke, I'm going to start with you. I'll be straight to the point. Any alpha, like what are things I'll ask the question in a more eloquent way. What are things you're interested in for the next year or two for NFTs in general, especially PFPs? Penguins not included.
Yeah, I'm just excited to kind of see what this new layer of infrastructure is going to bring in terms of liquidity towards NFTs. I think NFTs have been, intrinsically illiquid, and I think now with the unlocks of leverage, perps, call options, shorts, the whole nine, I think that just adds so much exciting, metrics to the potential price action. And I just want to elaborate on one thing Figgy said because I think it's really fascinating. Don't underestimate the tokenization of assets or adding tokens to your business model and what that creates. People say this all the time, but people don't really know this about me, but before Pudgy Penguins, I had a company called Gel Blaster. It was North America's fastest growing toy company. We grew it to $0 to $100 million in sales in 18 months. And that business was incredibly difficult to build. But with Pudgy Penguins, we actually had built a bigger business from an impressions and through point and unit metric sell-through in a shorter amount of time, in 12 months. And it was because of this aligned incentive that I think tokens add to business models. And so whether you're building a charity or a consumer product brand or an IP, or you're seeing this with tokens and meme coins, the aligned incentives that tokenizations or that tokens add to communities make communities so much more powerful. And is a leverage and a lever that is not to be underestimated. So super excited to see what infrastructure brings, and obviously what people like Magic Eden are doing to this space. And I think NFTs are going to go into their 2020 DeFi summer era here pretty soon.
All right, Tiffany.
I guess my major thing that I want to share is like today, Magic Eden is the #1 NFT marketplace. We have 60%, 70% of all the volume, as well as all of the wallets that transact on NFTs. A lot of people don't know this. I'm telling you now. I think in the future, though, what we have our sights on is not just being the #1 NFT marketplace, but building like a true ecosystem. So Magic Eden Wallet, which I mentioned before, has like 450,000 monthly active users. It's actually almost like the #1 wallet that's used on Magic Eden today. And in that wallet, we have swaps, and then on our marketplace, we're going to have runes. So there are forays into us playing like in the fungibles world as well. So if you think about Magic Eden today, it's the #1 NFT marketplace. In the future, it's going to be an entire ecosystem and an end-to-end user experience to help people onboard into Web3, help them onboard into NFTs. So encourage you guys to check that out. I think in the near future, what you guys can look forward to is we're launching Base at the end of April. We're launching Runes very soon, like next week. We are also going to be launching a mobile version of our app, as well as embedding the wallet into like the desktop experience. So it'll just feel like Coinbase. You won't even have to have like the plugin anymore. And in that world, we will be setting the stage for another very large announcement.
So one thing I've learned is like you just watch the companies that have the most money and see what they're doing. You guys have been very innovative. I remember since the last bull market, and just watching what you guys do very carefully, like obviously introducing Runes and Base, among other things. Is, we didn't talk enough about Base. I was just really curious to learn more about it. Michael, I'm going to go to you because I know we don't have much time. First a question without talking about Yuga, what is interesting to you? Any alpha you can share with the audience. And second, maybe a final comment on Base NFTs.
Sure, I think when we look at what's interesting in the space, it's going to be hard to ignore Bitcoin halving, which is happening like imminently, and all of the stuff that comes out of that. I think when we reflect on this past week, what Yuga was able to do is observe what we were good at, look at what we weren't as good at, and how we judoed that into a thing that's going to be a win for all of the ecosystem. And every time we're able to make smart decisions like that, you're seeing us gain more and more razor focus. So like that's something that I'm personally excited about. When it comes to Base, I do think that we're going to see a lot more adoption and a lot more of a competitive story to the standard story between chains right now. And I think we're always talking about chains. And one day, most of that will hopefully be abstracted down so that like your grandma could use Web3. But right now, if we're looking at just the technical hardware, I think the latest update on Base and making it so that the transactions are as cheap as transacting on Solana, it really gives the ecosystem a good run for its money, because now you're really having to look at
your mic, you're back, yeah.
What's that?
Your mic cut out for a bit.
For a second, yeah. You're really having to look at what improvements to these protocols actually mean to their position. Because I think there was this like false narrative that to get low transactions, you had to do it off Ethereum. But now it's actually the cheapest place to do transactions.
You guys avoided, because we don't have much time, you avoided the toughest question. I warned you behind the scenes. What is the most overrated chain? But we won't go there because we have only a few seconds left. Look, on our end, I think we're kind of guilty from our investment side. We haven't been that active in the NFT ecosystem. My team is right here, and I'll probably chat to them afterwards. And for the audience, I think sometimes you just got to be early. You got to try to look for what's not dominating the narrative to try to be ahead of the curve. And I think this panel focused on what most people in crypto are not really paying attention to. At least I've learned something. So we have the heavyweights on stage. I think it was a great discussion, tough questions. I appreciate you all doing this, and hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you so much.